It doesn't matter what your name is.
You just made the list!
Rest in peace.
Tell me, he didn't just say that.
Brother, bro, brothers, bro, brothers, brother, brothers, brother, 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 brother.
You are not ready for.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line, cause Stone Cold said so.
All you have to do is believe!
So for the benefit of those with flash photography,
Brother, 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 brothers, brother.
And if you're not down with that, we got 2 words for ya!
You're fired.
Woo, 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 woo!
Brother, 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 brothers, brother. If you smell.
Oh yeah! Yeah! Oh yeah! Oh yeah! Oh yeah! Oh yeah! Oh yeah!
ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, there's only one word to describe you.
Brother, brother.
Hello, everybody, once again, and welcome to the third episode of Hidden Gem Hunters with myself, Alec Burnitt, and the wonderful Mr. Peter Nixon. How are you doing, Peter?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thanks, Alec. It's stopped raining here, but I think we're due for some more rain next week, so I can't wait for that.
And that is Nixon's weather corner for the week, all done.
It's such a reliable conversation topic, isn't it? The weather.
Yeah, how else are you meant to start these things other than what the weather's been doing?
Exactly.
So this week we were given the event of Summerslam of 2008. We recalled a little bit about this when it came up, but there was a few surprises in there. So did you go in blind again?
I did indeed, but then as I started watching it, I remember vividly watching this show back in 2008.
Same.
So I remembered certainly the main event, which we didn't talk about last week. That didn't instantly spring into my mind, but then of course that was the main event. I had totally blocked Triple H and the Great Khali from my mind.
And then, I was really excited about that.
Oh, well then our scorings later on should be interesting.
So, just as a kind of before we get into the weeds with it and really go into it, overall, did you enjoy watching it?
I did. I certainly enjoyed aspects of it. I'll be honest with you. I skipped through the Jericho Shawn Michaels nonsense. I remember watching it at the time. I thought we're not going to rate this as part of the match ratings of the show. I thought I'm not going to sit through this cringe fest, so I skipped through that.
Okay. I did watch it. I just watched the pay-per-view start to finish. Apart from the main event, I came back to that a little bit later because I was pushed for time, which probably could have got through if I'd have skipped the bit that you did. But yeah, so what we'll do, I think, with this episode, I think if we start, before we get into SummerSlam 2008, if we start with our TV match this week, what do you think?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we were given, we've been opened this up to suggestions for TV matches. Obviously, we're reviewing a pay-per-view every single week. But there's so many good TV matches that have sort of been forgotten through time as well. So we opened that up. And one of the suggestions that we got was from November 25th, 2002. HBK, Shawn Michaels against Rob Van Dam for the World Heavyweight Championship on Raw. This was just after Shawn Michaels had won the championship in the first Elimination Chamber. I remember this happening, but I couldn't really remember anything about it. I know that this was a match that happened, but I don't think I've watched it since watching it the very first time when it aired. So I couldn't really remember anything about it, but yeah, I enjoyed this. What do you think?
I thought it was really good. I hadn't seen the match previously, but I remember it happening. I remember seeing maybe highlights of it on one of the magazine shows they do, like Afterburn or, one of those dreadful shows. But I actually went back and watched the entire episode of Raw.
Right, okay.
Did you see any of the rest of the show, or did you just watch this match?
No, I did just watch this match.
It was a really good episode of Raw. They had an ongoing storyline through the show. You probably remember this, where the first match on the show was the Dudleys versus Christian and Chris Jericho.
Okay.
And there's some shenanigans, and Jericho and Christian leave with the belts. But then, as they're in the shower, the Dudley boys nick Jericho and Christian's clothes. So then they have to come onto the ramp wearing just the towels, and then Spike comes behind and whips the towels off, and they both run off naked. Very. The way I've described it probably isn't as humorous, but if you go and watch it, it's really well done and very, very funny.
Okay. I will. I'll have a look at that and watch the rest of the show back. I did spot a couple of little bits as I was kind of flicking through on the WWE Network to find the match. Various bits that I thought looked like it was a fun show.
Yeah.
The match itself that we're talking about, I enjoyed it. I think this for me was kind of before. So Shawn Michaels had like a weird little period there where I don't think he'd really settled into what would be his second run style, if you will, because he sort of changed things up a little bit. And I think there's this kind of a bit of a clash of styles, a tad, not being used to RVD's stuff maybe. But I thought the match was really good, and I thought RVD kind of targeting the back, doing the rolling thunder to the back, and all that sort of stuff, and the frog splash at the end to the back as well, was a nice touch. It was a raw finish though, right? It would have been nice to have a nice clean finish to the match.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that very reason is the reason this isn't a hidden gem.
Correct.
If they'd have got 17 minutes on a pay-per-view and the chance to put on an epic world title match with an actual finish, then it might have been referred to as a classic. Mm-hmm. But you're right. They told a great story. Target in the back. There was a clash of styles at times, and you got to remember Shawn had just come back. He'd done that glorified
handful of matches, wasn't it? At this point, handful.
This was his first sort of epic world title defense. His third match back. What you got to remember is, Van Dam is a very different beast to Triple H. So I think they did really well to put on the match that they did. It was a great match. Just, like I say, if they'd have had 17 minutes on pay-per-view, it might have been a classic.
Yeah, and it's something that actually I'm quite disappointed that they didn't revisit at any point.
Yeah, right. I was thinking that they never got another singles match, I don't think.
No, I had a little look. I couldn't see anything. So that's surprising and disappointing. I think it was an odd choice, really, for this. I don't think the crowd knew who to cheer for as well. I don't think that maybe helped, but I think they got into it in the end. I enjoyed it. But again, like with the finish, and if they had got another 5 minutes to really get into that classic territory and kick it into that last gear, I think we could have had a classic on our hands. But enjoyable and a really good first suggestion, I think.
Definitely. Well done, Tommy.
Well done, Tommy. By the time this has come out, he'll have forgotten that he suggested it. So, the meat of the matter, the bit we're here to talk about. So, SummerSlam 2008. So, this was at Conseco Fieldhouse, Indianapolis, Indiana, in front of 15,997 fans. And we opened this show with MVP against Jeff Hardy, who went for 10 minutes and 10 seconds to open the show. I liked this as an opener for the pay-per-view. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was a good, fast-paced opener. Good action in this. Anytime you put either of the Hardys on first, you know you're going to set the show up well.
Mm-hmm.
Just looking at my notes here, I wrote down, is this an episode of Rampage? Because you got JR and Taz on commentary.
Yeah.
And just
I wouldn't know. I don't watch Rampage, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah, sometimes you're not missing much. Yeah. Poor Todd Grisham and Matt Striker. We'll get to them in a bit when we get to the ECW Championship match. But 3 commentary teams, I didn't think that was necessary.
No, I preferred it. Always preferred it, especially when they've got different brands and things, to take one from each team and just do the whole show.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could have had a 3-man commentary team. JR, Michael Cole, and Matt Striker.
Yeah. And that would have been fine.
No?
Yeah, that's exactly what I think as well. I thought in this, the little highlights they played at the start that kind of reminded people what was going on. There was they were sort of highlighting MVP, the drive, what he was calling the drive-by kick, which is a different move to what Roman Reigns does now. But there was a version of it in the highlights where he kind of, Jeff Hardy's on one knee and he kind of uses his upper knee and steps into it, and I thought it looked awesome, and I don't remember seeing him do it again. Yeah, but with a boot across the face as opposed to the knee. I thought it looked really good, and then I've never seen him do it that way since. But yeah, I thought that looked really good in the highlight package, but we're not reviewing the highlight package. So I have a little bit of a thing with Jeff Hardy. Okay, so Jeff Hardy has had some great matches. There's no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm.
But Jeff Hardy cannot throw a punch.
Yeah, no, I've never noticed it before, but I can picture his right hands, and he just
it irritates. It irritates me. It really, really irritates me. MVP's. I don't know. I always thought he was pretty kind of basic. I didn't think he was. I remember at the time thinking he wasn't that special. I did enjoy this as an opener, and it really started to pick up and got going. I gave it 6.
As did I.
Aha! We are off to a uncontroversial start. Okay, match number 2. It's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
The big match is really rolling at this point. This was Glamarella, Santino Marella, and the Glamazon Beth Phoenix against Kofi Kingston and Mickie James, and both the Intercontinental and Women's Championships are on the line. So with all of that on the line, you know this is going to be an epic, right?
Right, yeah. I was primed for, an absolute belter.
Yeah, so this went 5 minutes and 25 seconds. Yeah, it was entertaining for what it was, though, right?
Yeah, a little bit of comedy, but just very little substance, really.
Yeah. I would have. My main thought throughout this was how good it would have been on this pay-per-view to have just had Beth and Mickie go out and do 10 minutes and the women's title match, because they both look really good in everything they did. Kofi was still very new at this point. And Santino, obviously, you can't really take him seriously at this point at all. So, I enjoyed the match for what it was, but it wasn't long enough to really make any kind of an impression, I didn't think.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was interesting seeing intergender wrestling in WWE. You know, the men being able to wrestle the women.
Yeah.
I don't recall that happening much in WWE. But you know why? You know why they needed to get the Intercontinental Championship on Santino Marella, right?
Go on.
Because the very night after this event was the debut of the Honkometer.
The what, sorry?
The Honkometer.
I'll take your word for it.
Santino Marella wanted to break the Honky Tonk Man's Intercontinental Championship.
Okay, yeah.
So he would put up the Honkometer on the Titantron, and he would say, "The Honky Donkey Man was Intercontinental Champion for 62 weeks. I, Santino Marella, have been Intercontinental Champion for 2 weeks." And every week he would come out and do that, and it was really entertaining.
Okay, firstly, you sound more like Borat, but but yeah, I will have to go back and have a little look at that, because it does sound good. I have no recollection of that whatsoever.
It was brilliant. Honestly, you'll love it.
Brilliant. So I gave this a 5 because it was inoffensive, perfectly entertaining, but yeah, like I say, didn't really leave an impression.
Exactly the same. I went with 5 as well.
Ooh,
yeah.
Look at us! Look at us getting along. So after this was a segment on the show, which obviously we're not really reviewing. It was between Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho. Memorable because it's the segment where Chris Jericho punches Shawn Michaels' wife in the face and gives her a big fat lip. I watched this little bit, but I know that you didn't. Is that right?
Oh God, no! I couldn't put myself through it.
So I watched it. The package, so it was all around the eye injury of Shawn Michaels and him coming out to do a retirement speech, which then obviously doesn't lead to retirement. The eye injury coming from a match that Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho had at the Great American Bash, which I did not remember. But watching the highlight package just from that match makes me want to watch that match back, because that's not one that I remember, but it looked really good. I do like the line of Jericho saying that Shawn Michaels has to go home and tell his kids that it was Chris Jericho that retired him. And Shawn Michaels responds with, "You have to go home and tell your kids that you'll never be Shawn Michaels." And I thought it was a really good line, got a good pop. But yeah, I can see why you skipped it. And we're not scoring these segments; we're only scoring the matches. So we will move on.
I did wonder at the time how they did the fat lip. Was that maybe stuffed something in her gob, or did she actually take the team?
Yeah, he punched her in the face. I read it in his book, where essentially Shawn Michaels, she's trying to hold him back, and then he kind of pulled her too close in, and Jericho socked her one.
Oh, Christ!
Yeah, so that makes it even better, really. Because it's a funny segment, memorable for that reason. What I did think was really interesting, though, is if you've got a segment where the big moment of that segment is a man hitting a woman, whether it's accidental or not, and they're completely flattening her, should that have come directly after a match where the men are fighting the women?
Well, I get what you mean, but I don't see a problem with it considering she's not a wrestler.
Yeah, I get it. I just think maybe they could have just spaced it out a little bit more, but it's just a personal take. Just a little thing that popped into mind while watching. But I enjoyed the segment for what it was. It just reminded me how good I thought this feud was at the time. But anyway, match number 3, and I want you to really go into detail and dissect this.
Okay.
So this is Matt Hardy challenging, I believe, at this point, Mark Henry for the ECW Championship. And this match went 33 seconds.
Okay, let's dive deep into this one. So, Mark Henry had Tony Atlas in his corner.
Notorious foot lover, Tony Atlas.
Oh, indeed. Happy holidays. The ECW belt. Can we talk about that ugly silver piece of shit?
I can't believe you feel so strongly about it.
Well, they had a cool design previously with the blood dripping down on the belt. I thought it looked really good. And then, yeah, they debut this new ECW title and it's bloody dreadful.
But at the same time, if you're not maintaining any consistency with the old ECW, why would you continue to have the old ECW branding of the belt? I mean, I think by this point, the show should have been given a new name anyway, because it was ECW in name only. But
I 100% agree with you. They shouldn't never have brought back ECW. If they wanted a third brand, create something new.
Yeah, I mean, at the time,
I know
I
that's what they did with NXT, but yeah.
I think actually, if you're able to watch some of the ECW shows, so once they completely done away with basically all of the ECW originals, and it was ECW in name only, as we were saying. By this point, it was. If you actually watch those shows, there's actually some really good stuff on there, but people were so negative about it because they wanted ECW.
Right.
But there's actually some good stuff, and some people sort of came through. Obviously, Sheamus debuted on there, Kofi Kingston on there, Zack Ryder started to get a push on there, and had
Zack Ryder got that guy's cock out, didn't he?
What?
I can't remember the guy's name for the life of me, but he was wrestling a guy on ECW, and the guy's trunk split. And his cock was exposed on ECW.
Amazing.
I'm gonna have to research
there is a match that might be a good suggestion for our TV forgotten gems to have a look at. That's just sprung to mind, and that was when Christian was the ECW champion, and he had a TV main event defending against Zack Ryder that was really good.
Okay.
So that might be a worthwhile one to have a look at some point. But yeah, I agree that that at this point, it wasn't what it was. I didn't mind the belt. It wasn't an ECW looking belt, but I didn't mind it.
Okay, I think you might be the only one.
I thought it was all right. I didn't mind it. But yeah, back to this classic match.
What was the point of Grisham and Stryker being out there for 33 seconds of wrestling?
You gotta feel bad for them.
I feel so bad for them.
But it's the easiest payday they'll ever have.
Yeah, but they had to sit through the entire show. I think I can't remember if they were there after this match, but before this match, they were at ringside for the other matches.
Yeah.
Like we said, they could have just had one uniform announce team. They didn't need two people to just be sat at ringside twiddling their thumbs.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely.
Anyway,
it's a shame. It's a shame. But yeah, this match didn't really happen. Really, 33 seconds. Not really a lot to talk about.
I was toying with not even rating it because, what can you really say about it? I mean, we've talked a good 5 minutes about this match, but we haven't even spoken about the match.
Because there's nothing really to talk about.
No.
I scored this a 2. Based off our conversation last week, where we said stuff that scores a 1 or a 0 we were going to add to a list of like the worst matches, like forget them to history, keep them forgotten. I didn't find this to be like they didn't do anything wrong. They just were only given 30 seconds to work with.
Exactly. A 0 and a 1 are reserved for matches that have a bit of substance, and it is just dreadful.
Stinker performances, that kind of thing. But yeah, they were given 30 seconds. So, I think they did as much as they could do with the time they were given, which was pretty much nothing. And then the Jeff run in and things like that. I mean, they made the best of being given absolutely nothing. So, but it doesn't deserve anything more than a 2 because it didn't have any substance.
Exactly. I also went with 2. So we are exactly on the money so far.
Yeah, that doesn't happen.
No, it hasn't happened yet.
That hasn't happened yet. So, match 4. This is the World Heavyweight Championship match. CM Punk, who had recently cashed in his Money in the Bank to beat Edge for the World Heavyweight Championship. This is his first World Championship, and entered straight into a feud with JBL. And that's what we've got here, CM Punk and JBL, for 10 minutes and 29 seconds. At the time, I remember this. It was one of them where when we first mentioned the pay-per-view, I don't think this instantly jumped to mind. But I remember when the show started and it showed in the little package at the start that this was one of the matches. I remember at the time not liking this.
Okay.
It sort of jumped back into my mind. And I was like, "Oh yeah, that was a stinker." And then I watched this and I actually enjoyed it. It was ugly at times. It was a clash of styles. Punk at this point was, he hadn't. I don't think he'd figured out how to be a main event guy yet. And JBL's JBL. His style is his style. He's not going to really do much of other people's stuff. But I actually enjoyed this watching it now because of that. Because I enjoyed seeing the clash of styles and JBL kind of really laying everything in. And I think the clash of heads and the bit of blood actually added to it because Punk then's really fighting from underneath. I thought that actually added to the match, even though it was an accident. But yeah, what did you think of this?
I totally agree with everything you just said. I felt bad for Punk at the time.
What is happening? What? Why are we agreeing on everything?
I know. I'm sure we'll disagree on something at some point on this show. Although looking at my notes, I think maybe you and I will just have to agree on this one.
Okay.
I felt bad for CM Punk in 2008 because he'd won the world title, but he never really had a run with it. He wrestled Batista on the previous pay-per-view for the title, and everyone thought, Batista's just going to steamroll Punk and take the belt back. But they barely had a match. They did some stuff, and then there was outside interference. I can't remember exactly what happened, but the match was thrown out. And then this is the only match where CM Punk actually beats someone and retains the title.
The thing is, he was in this position, but at the time, while people liked him, he hadn't yet been established as a main event guy, and as you say, hadn't really beaten anyone at that top tier. And I think it shows that if he's in that match with Batista, like you said, and they have to do interference and everything else, it's because they're not willing to, really say this guy is a main event guy.
Well, yeah, but if you can't commit to CM Punk beating Batista, don't
put the title on him.
Yeah, don't book CM Punk versus Batista.
Yeah. And I think JBL at this point had kind of he'd gone past being a main event guy. No one really thought he was going to get another run. I mean, it was only well, it was the WrestleMania that followed this, wasn't it? His last match.
Yeah.
So he was sort of winding down. So I get it. Punk is beating, a bit of a bully character and someone that is a former world champion at this point. But, at this stage in 2008, if you'd have put Punk in with, like you say, Batista, Cena, Undertaker, Triple H, one-on-one, there's no way Punk beats any of them in 2008.
Exactly.
And also, he didn't even get to drop the title.
Oh, that's so frustrating. And that wound me up so much, the fact that he was taken out of that scramble match at Unforgiven. But the next night on Raw, him and Kofi Kingston win the tag titles.
Yeah, that's like a consolation prize.
Yeah.
That annoyed me. And he's said before in interviews, he said, he would have rather have just gone to the ring and got beat.
Yeah.
And that's what should have happened. They could have taken, if they had to get Jericho in there, they could have taken anybody out of that match, or like he suggested at the time, he's like, or just the following night on Raw, have Jericho beat him.
Yeah.
Just and lose the title, instead of silly bullshit. But yeah, I did enjoy this match more than I remember enjoying it at the time.
I absolutely agree. I think they had a surprisingly good chemistry for two very, very different workers.
Yeah. Anything else to add on this one?
Not really. The right guy won. He was fighting adversity, like you said, with the clash of heads and the blood. And Punk, when the match finished, he was, wiping his head and showing the blood to the camera, saying, "I will bleed for this." And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I agree. And then he didn't really get an opportunity to
bleed for
to prove that anymore. Know. But yeah, I scored this a 7.
Okay, you were a little bit more generous than me. I went with a 6.
Okay, so we finally a little bit apart on something. But yeah, I thought 7 was because I was in it. Some matches, they're decent, but I can be quite easily distracted. But when a match is good, I'm in it, and this had my attention for the whole match. So I thought 7 was fair. But another match that went roughly the same amount of time followed this, 10 minutes, because WWE thought that the world only needed 33 seconds of the ECW title match, but they needed 10 full minutes of the Great Khali. So this was Khali against Triple H for the WWE Championship. And I'm just going to let you take this one.
When the bell rang, I was thinking to myself, I hope this is mercifully short. And it wasn't. It was incredibly dull. There's not much else to say about it other than it served its purpose, I guess. Triple H got a big win on pay-per-view, and the pop for the pedigree at the end was pretty good. What else can you say about this match, though?
I've never seen a vice grip where someone's trying so hard not to squeeze someone's head that their hands are just slipping all over the place while they're in it. But I mean, I didn't give this too low of a score. It went too long, but I didn't give it too low of a score because I thought that Triple H did as good a job as anyone has ever done of getting 10 minutes out of the Great Khali.
That's fair.
I thought he bumped around for him. He made him look as good as he could possibly look. So I just for Triple H, I thought putting a shift in and putting in a performance. I didn't class this as a complete stinker, but I gave it a 3.
I also gave it a 3.
Ooh. So that concludes the title matches on the show. But strangely, the world title and the WWE title matches are not the biggest matches on this show. Neither of them were. The two main events were up next, and that was match 6 on this show. Was for the first time ever. I'm sure they had matches in like OVW or something, but the first time ever properly on a WWE show, Batista against John Cena. 13 minutes and 50 seconds. I thought this was bloody brilliant.
I also thought this was really good. Both men are capable of those epic main events. So when you bring that together, I thought they produced a really good match here. Whoever agented, is that an adjective?
It is now.
Whoever agented this match did really well because they told a good story. They had some big moves and big moments, like when Batista had Cena up on his shoulder for the power slam and Cena slipped back, reversed it into the attitude adjustment. Oh, that was really cool.
Yeah.
And
agreed.
of course, the big move of the match was Cena coming off the top with the leg drop and Batista catching him in the Batista bomb.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. And you said they went 13 minutes, but it never outstayed its welcome.
Yeah, I think that was important for me with this. I think if this had tried to go into that 20-minute match territory to try and make it an like an epic, like a classic, I don't think that's always necessary. And I think the amount of time they did was spot on, really, for what this needed to be. Plus, it left things open because, like I say, 2010, they were at WrestleMania against each other.
Indeed.
So they kind of left things open. I believe that this match kind of happened, and then they left it alone until the build for that WrestleMania, which is a good 18 months or so later. Yeah. So, and that's probably a good thing as well, that they kind of left it because people will have remembered this match, thought this was really good. What can they do at WrestleMania? And left it wide open. I thought this was really good. I remember enjoying it at the time. I enjoyed it again on the second viewing, and I scored this one an 8.
Okay, again, you were a little bit more generous than me. I went with a 7.
Topsy-turvy world that we live in, where I'm being more generous than you.
Maybe I'm just becoming bitter as the weeks go on.
That's that retirement. That'll do it for you.
Well, yeah, exactly.
So when wrestlers retire, they become bitter.
Bitter old bastards.
Exactly. Okay, 7. Yeah. I thought it was better than that. But yeah, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. I'll let you get to that conclusion on your own.
Mate, that's an awful thing to say.
Living with me is a delight.
I can have my opinion.
You are entitled. You are absolutely entitled to your incorrect opinion. So main event time. 26 minutes and 44 seconds of The Undertaker against Edge inside Hell in a Cell. What did you reckon?
I thought this was tremendous. If you watch modern Hell in a Cell matches, well, first of all, they don't really mean anything because they're usually part of the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. But I think this might have been the last Hell in a Cell match that actually meant something before the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view came into existence. And you were getting 3 Hell in a Cell matches for feuds that didn't need the Hell in a Cell stipulation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think, just to jump in, I think the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view is the worst thing to happen to the Hell in a Cell match. 100%. Because it stopped it being special.
Yeah.
Stopped it being the match that was required when a feud got to that point that it needed it. Instead, it was, we will give the Hell in a Cell to whoever's feuding at the time.
Exactly. There are so many matches that didn't need to be in Hell in a Cell.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure, we'll probably get one of those Hell in a Cell pay-per-views at some point. And I'm sure there's good matches. I'm sure there's good Hell in a Cells that have been kind of forgotten about.
But the Hell in a Cell should be the blow-off to the feud, and that's exactly what this match was.
Yeah, and this was a feud that I really liked at the time. Obviously, the main evented WrestleMania of this year, 2008. The main event there, they had rematches. And then Undertaker was gone. You had the whole story with Edge and Vicky, and Edge cheating on Vicky, and then her being so upset about that, she reinstates the Undertaker and puts them in Hell in a Cell. I also remember in the build, and they highlighted this as well, Edge beating up Mick Foley.
Yeah.
Kind of get into that mindset of taking on Undertaker in the Hell in a Cell, and I thought that did a really, really good job to make it look like Edge was going to take it to a whole different level in order to be competitive with the Undertaker in Hell in a Cell. And the fact that you need to do that for a Hell in a Cell, you get what I mean? It made the match feel big and dangerous and important. Which it then later wasn't. And then they try and get people excited about a Hell in a Cell match. Occasionally they've dumped one at WrestleMania, and it's like, well, okay, you've done this at WrestleMania now, but we saw this in October.
Exactly.
We saw 3 of these in October, and it's less special then. But anyway, I've beaten that to death now. So it's this match.
From what I understand, Triple H wants to do away with the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. And I wouldn't be offended if we only see Hell in a Cell every 18 months or 2 years going forward.
Yeah, I mean,
when it's absolutely necessary.
Yeah, if you want to see like a themed pay-per-view that time of year to kind of pique people's interest, then just do WWE War Games now.
Yeah.
In October, I know they did the Survivor Series War Games, but I think you can have War Games standalone. The whole themed pay-per-views was a weird era anyway.
Yeah.
Who gets excited about a pay-per-view that's just called Fatal 4-Way?
Oh, I was just about to give that example.
What on earth? What on
How
earth?
are we so on point tonight?
I know, right? We're getting in sync now. See, third week. That's what's happening.
Are you on your period as well?
Sorry?
Are you on your period as well?
I am, yeah.
I don't believe this.
I know, right? It is a bloody mess over here. Anywho, we'll breeze past that. So this match, I'll let you carry on.
If you watch modern Hell in a Cell matches, they're basically just hardcore matches. Just weapons matches that happen to be in a cage, and they rarely use the cage. They certainly don't venture outside the cell, which I think people have grown to expect, certainly from the early days of Hell in a Cell. But I thought this match, although it was a glorified weapons match, they still were able to do the stuff we know where Edge speared Undertaker through the cell. They were able to go outside for a little bit, but not too long. And they came back inside and finished the match. Go on.
The crowd were booing when they went back in. So they thought they were going to get something off the cage or something like that, but it didn't need it, I didn't think.
No, but they still, did stuff out there, and I did think it was cool what they did. And when people started booing, I think they covered it well. By I think Undertaker went and got a table or something to get them back involved.
When they were outside of the cell, and Edge did the spear through the announce table, so he runs along one.
Oh yeah,
hits the spear through the other. Great spot, I loved it.
Yeah.
Made even better by the JR commentary line that was my favourite from the entire event, where he said, "Never mind walking on water, Edge is running on wood." I have no fucking idea what point he was trying to make, but it was delightful. I fucking got the giggles, I won't lie.
I get the walking on water bit because it's biblical. But
Yeah, I get that, but just the analogy just did not work.
No, running
There's
on
just
wood.
this awkward silence from like Taz afterwards, where it just kind of was left hanging there.
I think that can be our subtitle for the episode. He's running on
Yeah.
wood.
Running on wood.
Yeah.
Episode 3, running on wood.
Yeah.
I like that. I for the most part really enjoyed this. Thought it was really good. I liked the finish with Undertaker kind of just going mental and just hitting the spear, hitting him with the camera, the concerto, and the tombstone.
Yeah, and the choke slam off the top through the 2 tables.
Yeah, that was the only bit that annoyed me.
Oh,
because I didn't dislike the choke slam off the top through the tables, fine, but they were up again too quick. I didn't feel like they let that sink in. Edge was on his feet because he rolled him back in, and Edge got up to his feet to take the spear, and I was just kind of like, that was a really, really big move. And I know they kind of then went into the finish, the sprint of move after move after move. But I don't know. But for me, I was just like, give him a chance to sell it before you carry on.
Yeah, I agree with you there. They should have let it breathe.
Yeah, but it's nitpicking, really, to be honest, because this was really good in general. I thought these two had a really good feud throughout 2008.
And then of course you got the visual of Undertaker choke slamming Edge through the ring straight to hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great payoff to a great feud, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. So, given let's firstly, what did you score that one?
8.
Yeah, I gave it an 8 as well.
I knew it.
Yeah. So, with that in mind, looking at SummerSlam 2008 as a whole, let's look at these scores. So yours combined with mine, this show rated a 5.5. So I think that's pretty fair, because while there was good stuff, there was a couple of things that I can see how it got dragged down.
Yeah.
Triple H and Great Khali, the ECW title match dragged it down. The mixed tag match was not ever going to score really high.
Yeah.
So those matches kind of dragged it down. But I think actually, if you're looking at this from the opener was decent. Punk and JBL was good. Batista and Cena was really good, and the main event was really good. So there's plenty here that I think people can go back on this event and enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think anything from this event is a hidden gem?
Unfortunately, no.
I think there's matches that are good enough but I think the matches I'm thinking are too well known.
Yeah, absolutely. Edge and Undertaker, it's almost one of those forgotten Hell in a Cell matches, but it was still the main event of SummerSlam.
Yeah, main event is SummerSlam.
How can it be a hidden gem?
Yeah, main event is SummerSlam, ended their feud, which also main evented WrestleMania, so it was a big feud. So not a forgotten gem or hidden gem, but really, really good.
Yeah,
and worth going back and checking that out. So, out of 3 episodes, we have only found 1 hidden gem so far.
I think that's good because we
don't be adding them every week.
No, exactly. There should be a rarity. It should be an occasion when we do find one.
Yeah. So at the minute, our only hidden gem, for those that did not listen to, why wouldn't you listen, but did not listen to episode 2, where we reviewed WCW Beach Blast from 1992, our only hidden gem at the moment is Rick Rude against Ricky Steamboat in a 30-minute Iron Man match, which was terrific. So we need a show for next week. So here we go. We are going to pick our show to watch for this coming week that we'll review on next week's show.
Come on, EC
Our random number generator has given us. Ooh, okay, 334.
Okay, so I'm thinking mid to late 2000s.
I mean, it's not going to be too far away from the one we did this week, right?
Right.
Maybe a little bit. This can be a little bit earlier. Let me try and find it. Oh, okay. Okay, so we do have a WrestleMania.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we have WrestleMania 23.
Ah, Detroit. Battle of the Billionaires.
Yeah, we get to watch some Donald Trump. Yeah,
Okay.
so we have WrestleMania 23 for this coming week. Off the top of my head, this is Cena and HBK, right? This one?
Yep, Undertaker, Batista.
Yeah, and then Battle of the Billionaires, that's the sort of main three that were. I'm just remembering the sort of event poster was those three matches.
Yeah.
Were the main ones. Yeah, cool. I'm sure there's a Money in the Bank on there.
There is indeed. There's also the ECW Originals versus the New Breed.
Okay, that'll be fun.
Yeah, for all 4 minutes or however long it goes.
Yeah. There's got to be something on here that we're forgetting, though, right? That was good.
Yeah, I'd have thought so.
I mean, there's definitely some good stuff on it. I mean, Taker and Batista was great.
Yeah.
But not sure it'll qualify as a hidden gem, but I look forward to watching it nonetheless.
Exactly.
Okay, awesome. Sounds good. Let's get that watched. Right, and then I'll edit in where we'll now pick the well, not pick, but we'll talk about put the bit in about the TV thing. TV match.
Cool.
And then I'll just do another quick sign off, yeah?
Yeah.
Because obviously in the sign off I'll have talked about what we're watching. So
yeah.
Okay, so that is everything all set for next week. WrestleMania 23 from 2007. And we will be watching a match from WWE Velocity on April 10th, 2004, which is Rey Mysterio, Akio, Nunzio, and Billy Kidman in a four-way. So we hope that is on the network. If not, we'll find a link for it and we'll post that as well so everyone can watch along. Yeah, so that's another week done. I'll see you or speak to you on week 4, Mr. Nixon.
Yeah, fantastic. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, should be another blinder of WrestleMania 23.
Definitely.